let's bring in our guest, Abbey Mastracco from Locked On Yankees. Abby, how you doing on this Sunday?
Name. People don't get Mastracco right on the first try often. I'm impressed.
Well, when you've been in this as long as I have, and I'll be honest, it was a bit of geographical profiling because if you're back east and you're working on the Yankees beat, it has to be Mastracco. It can't be Mastracco or Mastrucco. It's got to be
Yeah.
Mastracco.
Well, but I'm from California and I live in New York now, and my dad's from upstate New York, so like he's very particular about how people say it. I always just on the West Coast growing up, I was just like, yeah, whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah, now that I'm back here, like people actually do pronounce it correctly more often than they do in California. It's kind of funny to me.
Makes perfect sense. And having the New York roots and now covering the New York Yankees has got to be a bit of a emotional homecoming. How are these Yankees doing, and what's the state of the Yankee fan base? Because Guru mentioned it earlier. You win a game and you pelt the opponent with trash anyway. What's the vibe like out there with this team?
Well, just to clarify, do I do cover the Yankees for Locked On Yankees, but I'm a national baseball reporter for Bleacher
Okay,
Report
good.
and national hockey reporter for Bleacher Report and as well. So uh, it's a frustrated fan base. They think that this is a contention window and that the organization is not doing enough to capitalize on this contention window right now. However, I don't understand. Look, you won. Like, why are you? But even before that, there was the altercation with the outfielders and Miles Straw climbing the fence. And yesterday was just such an ugly day for Yankees fans in general. Like, they cheered when a guy got hurt. That's these are diehard fans. The East Coast is intense. It's very difficult to play in New York, whether it's the Yankees or the Mets. I covered the Mets beat for a couple years for a couple papers in New Jersey. And there's just a lot of pressure on New York athletes. These fans are so demanding, but to pelt them with trash and even the opposition, that's just so classless. Like, you guys are grown men, women too. I did see some of the videos where there were some women flipping off, the outfielders yesterday. And these are adults. There are kids there. You're supposed to be setting an example. Yeah, you're supposed to have fun and enjoy and like cheer for your team, and you're supposed to have passion. But that's not passion. That's just unruly behavior. There's no excuse for that. Do better, Yankees fans. I mean, I understand that there is a lot of frustration right now, and you can't take it out on the opposing team. Gleyber Torres has been needing a big hit like that. Like, that was his moment. You guys ruined Gleyber Torres' moment there. There's no excuse for the L on the forehead. It's just absolutely classless behavior. It's immature. I don't know. Why is everybody acting so weird these days? Somebody punched Mike Tyson on a plane last week. Like, why is everybody acting so weird? I get that.
You
Like,
know what? I was just Oh, I'm sorry. I was
no,
just
go
telling my
ahead.
partner the same thing. No, I was telling my partner the same thing. Is it post-pandemic? I don't get it, but you would have thought the Yankees blew that game. But, yeah, a lot of people are walking around angry, so be safe. I want to ask you
Yeah.
about Garrett Cole. I want to
Okay.
ask you about Garrett Cole, and you tell me if I'm wrong by labeling him an enigma. Because last year we saw Major League Baseball was enforcing the substance, the sticky stuff. And Garrett Cole went to, he had a couple press conferences where he said some things that were a bit odd. He was using, he wasn't using. I'm still scratching my head. But I look at him now, and even at the end of last year, he doesn't look like the same Garrett Cole. And his ERA, I know it's early, a couple starts, 6.76. What do you make of Garrett Cole and his struggles?
Well, he was injured last year. He had, it was hamstring or calf. I can't remember. Sometimes they all blur together. I cover 60-something teams right now. He didn't look like the same Garrett Cole, in part because of the injuries last year. And this year, it's been off to a rough start. They saw him screaming in the dugout during the opening day festivities, wanting to like move things along. His two shortest outings of his career. He's going to have to answer some really uncomfortable questions about the sticky stuff. And I think he's prepared to answer those questions if things continue to spiral. He's pitching today. I watched the first few minutes of the game, and then I had to go do some stuff. He it's Okay, like I said earlier, it's difficult to be an athlete in New York. I think it was Cameron Maben who said it best. The pinstripes are very heavy when you put them on. I think Garrett Cole understands that though, and he understands that the questions are going to start coming if he doesn't start pitching up to the level of what they expected him to be when they signed him as the ace before 2020. It is a little bit early to panic right now. I think he's prepared for some of those questions, but it's how he handles them and how he responds on the mound is going to be what matters, because you can say everything you want to say in the media, and you can be prepared and you can have those lines ready, but is it going to wear on him? Are we going to see it sort of wear him out? It's the back page headlines can be difficult for a lot of people to deal with. New York is a different market. I mean, I came from LA and I thought, well, it can't be that much different than LA. That's the number 2 biggest market in the country. No, it's such a different market up here. And it just is in the entire Northeast, Boston, Philly. These fans are intense and they're demanding, and they expect their ace to pitch like an ace. So I think he's the kind of guy who can handle the pressure, though. I just do wonder maybe if there is some sort of like lingering injury concerns with him, or maybe maybe the spin rate's down because he's not using sticky stuff anymore.
Right.
It's too early to panic though. I know that fans love to panic after like the first game. Like I said, I covered the Mets. I've never seen a fan base panic after like one game the way that Mets fans do. And it's an ace, so I understand the concern. It's a little early. I think he's capable of handling the pressure, though.
Abbey Mastracco here with Guru and Dick on Sunday Bets and the BetQL Network. So I want to ask you about the AL Cy Young, and it's not even a race yet because, as you mentioned, it's so early. But thanks to gambling, good old gambling, we can talk about it in terms of wagertainment. Garrett Cole 6-1, the second choice odds wise, and based on what you just said about, maybe the sticky substance and a regression. I don't know if he's necessarily the best value, but how do you assess the AL Cy Young look? Shane Bieber, your favorite, plus 450. Then it's Dylan Cease, Justin Verlander, Shohei Ohtani at 12-1. Can he pitch enough to be a factor? What do you think about the AL Cy Young picture?
I think Shohei Ohtani makes it a fascinating race. I mean, anything he does is fascinating. I don't think people quite understand just how taxing it is to pitch and hit and sometimes play the field the way that he does and just do things so exceptionally well. Like he runs the bases well. He's like a specimen. He's a baseball alien or something. I don't know. If he can stay healthy though, yeah, he's going to complicate that race. I think it's tough to I I'm not saying this like pun intended. I don't know much about gambling, but it's tough to bet against Shane Bieber, especially the season that looks like Cleveland's improving this year. They've had some down seasons. They tanked. They've got some guys though that they're an interesting case study this year. They've got one of the best ERAs, team ERAs already this season, and Bieber's obviously going to be a big part of that. I am curious about what Justin Verlander can do this year. I mean, he's getting up there in age, and you just don't really know when that regression is going to hit. Sometimes guys are, they look Cy Young caliber one season, and then they just completely fall off a cliff the next. And he's had the injuries. We understand that. Cole, I guess, yeah, would be one of the favorites. It's just so early. I mean, I think we're probably discounting some guys in Chicago, and I'm trying to think some of the other AL pitchers. It's so early. I haven't thought about I understand the Vegas odds want to talk about these things right now. From a reporter's perspective, I think we're just trying to see if Garrett Cole can get through 5 innings right now. It's with the lockout really changed this early season. Guys aren't throwing their max velocity. Guys aren't getting through 5, 6 innings, 7 innings right now. They're still trying to build up to what we, sort of even just early season form. This is the shortened spring training really changed things. It's such a different season this year, and we're not going to start to see guys up to like their full capabilities for another month or two.
No, I love it. I love your line about, and I won't forget it. I may steal it. Don't get mad at me. The pinstripes are heavy.
Yeah.
Words are incredible. That is the truth. And that brings me to the manager, Boone. Do you think it's AL East? Like, even if they win the division, is that enough? Or does this team have to go to the World Series? Because we got Yankee fans here on the West Coast, and they talk about Boone like they wanted him fired. Is
Yeah.
that just a select part of the fan base, or does that resonate? Do you get the feeling it resonates through the city? Is it World Series or bust for the Yankees?
In terms of whether or not they retain Boone, I'm not sure because I think Hal Steinbrenner really likes and really respects Aaron Boone. And I know that Brian Cashman very much respects Aaron Boone and they have a long history together. And Brian Cashman made a really good point last year. He said when he decided to keep Aaron Boone, he said, well, if we let Aaron Boone go, he'd be the number one coach or number one manager on the market, on the free agent market. So he's not wrong in saying that, the fans, however, and the city, man, so my neighborhood in Brooklyn, I live in Williamsburg, and there's a lot of Puerto Ricans and Dominicans here, and they all hang out in front of the bodega across from my apartment, and they know that I cover baseball, so they all like to talk with me. They really want Aaron Boone gone. Like, it's so funny listening to people around the city even just sitting on the subway listening to people discuss Aaron Boone. They don't think that he is the championship manager that this team needs. But this team isn't I don't know that it's a championship team right now, the way that it's constructed. Sure, they got better defensively. They've got one of the best bullpens in baseball. The lineup's struggling right now. Like, their whole thing last year was like, this is a big enough lineup that they can out-hit mistakes. And it couldn't. They found that out the hard way. They could not out-hit mistakes. And that lineup, the offense was sort of streaky at best last year. Made some good midseason trade deadline acquisitions. But this lineup right now, they're kind of struggling to produce. The rotation, it's a good starting rotation, but there's just not a lot of depth. The bullpen is really key here. So I don't know. I don't know that the way that the roster is constructed right now, that it's a championship roster. I think we've got to see a little bigger sample size, and the fans turned against Boone a few years ago. I think he's kind of used to that. But this city is not happy unless the Yankees are winning championships. Like, they think it's been entirely too long, and they want Cashman gone, or maybe Cashman put in like a different role, like a team president role, bring in a different GM, because it's just that's sort of the standard here is this team wins championships, and that's not happening. But it's just such a different game than it was in the 90s. The talent pool is so much deeper, and it's now it's the expanded playoffs, I think, are going to be fun to watch, but it makes it that much more difficult to get through the playoffs.
Right.
So the Yankees are sort of at odds with the city right now. It's kind of a fascinating dynamic to watch.
Great breakdown from Abbey Mastracco. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me.
Hey.
Abbey Mastracco, Locked On Yankees, national baseball reporter and writer, national hockey reporter and writer. She does it all. She joins us here on Sunday Bets with Guru and Dibs.